Good evening. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, July 19th, 2022. Shirley Brown. Yes, I did. Could you all stand, please, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Our board clerk, Kathy Tompkins, has collected the cards for the hearing of citizens, and we will call you forward at the appropriate time for comment. We're happy to see all of you here. Where has the summer gone? Prior to this meeting, the board members, superintendent, and staff enjoyed a discussion with students enrolled in the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota and DeSoto County's STAR Leadership Training Program. Meeting and speaking with school board members and staff is one of the most educational and exciting components of the program. Please welcome these students who are attending the meeting tonight. Would you please stand? And next on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Asplin, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that. So a few items here. First of all, I wanted to mention that we did earn an A, as everybody knows, I'm sure, by now. Yep, very good. And just wanted to mention just a few things about that. First of all, when you look at our individual schools, we had no Ds and no F schools in our traditional schools. We had 31 schools that were A's and B's, 8 C's, and then 2 ungraded, which would be Triad and Oak Park. But I thought that, obviously that was fantastic. We increased our overall points by 24 points this time. We're at 720, which is definitely in the A range. And over the last few years and the things that our students and teachers basically have had to overcome and the adversity that we've had has been incredible, and everyone has done a great job of bouncing back. I know this past year, 2 years ago, it was the concurrent teaching. Some students in the classroom, some students on the computer at the same time. But, last year was a big catch-up year for us and trying to catch our students up to be proficient. And I think everyone did a great job. I'm just proud, very proud of our school district and especially our students. But I do want to thank our teachers. Our teachers, they are the heroes in our school system. I think, every single day they're with their students. They shut that door, and that's where the learning happens. And I'm just so proud of them and all that they've done for our students and the families of those students as well. Teaching the standards, analyzing data, caring so much for their students. They're just doing a great job of trying to catch them up. We need to definitely encourage and support all of our teachers. We have great teachers here in Sarasota County, and we certainly need to come together and support them and encourage them, especially going into this next school year. So thank you to our outstanding teachers. Also, I want to thank our principals who do a great job leading their schools, and the school-based administrators and the staff out at the school sites, just doing an incredible job to create an atmosphere where our students can do well and learn. Also want to thank our district leaders, our district teams, and the different departments that help support our schools. Our folks here in the district do just a great job every day. Also want to thank our parents and our community leaders, for all of your support, and the clubs like Rotary, just the volunteers especially too, helping us in the schools every day with the teachers and helping students. They just do a great job, and again, it takes a whole community, and again, working together is something that we need to continue to do to help our students be successful. I also want to, I know there's a lot of people, but in our community we have a lot, but also thank our foundations for their support. The Branzik Foundation, the Community Foundation, Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Patterson Foundation, our Education Foundation, our local business leaders who help us out with all their time and effort and their generous resources. I really appreciate everything that they have done here in Sarasota County. And like I said, everyone working together. What's our motto, right? Working together as one for the success of all. And I think as long as we are doing that and we are being positive, patting each other on the back, helping each other out, having students first in your mind, what's best for our students and how can we work together to get there, we're just going to continue to move forward. And we're going in the right direction. Now, does that mean we don't have things to do and work on? No, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of improvements that need to be made. And I think everyone in this room and in our school district knows that. And we'll just continue to analyze the data, continue to look at what the students need, how we can group them together for certain standards and interventions, and really help them as close to a one-on-one situation as possible to help them be successful in school. Next year, we won't have the FSA next year. This is the last year for that. So this way of evaluating school districts will probably be a little bit different. We're still waiting to hear exactly what that's going to look like. But this time next year, we'll be talking a different story, I think, based on what the evaluation process is going to look like. So with that, I just want to say thank you again to everyone. And we all are all working together to make good things happen in Sarasota County. Another item I wanted to bring up is niche. I don't know if you've all have heard of niche before. I'm out there on the webpage. Yes. So niche has us ranked out of all 67 districts, has us ranked as #1 for the safest school district in Florida. And then niche also has us as #2 as the best school district in Florida. So I thought that was fantastic. Also, most diverse school districts, we're #20 out of the total school districts in Florida. And we have thousands and thousands of views on niche of people looking at our school district each month. And I think everybody's looking at our school district. Everybody's looking to move here. And everyone knows that. There's a lot of folks who are moving here, and they look at this website to see how we're doing. And this is also a way that we've been marketing and recruiting our employees. And it's been working very, very well with folks coming from other states around the country. So I just wanted you to be aware of that as well. And then also our police officers, I want to recognize them. They do a great job, as I've said before many times. Yeah. They do a great job of keeping us safe all across the district and in our schools and here in our school district. And as you know, with certain items in the news lately with shootings and so forth, I know that they have had at least 3 active shooting trainings this summer so far at some of our school sites, just so that they are ready to go, working with other municipalities, with the other police departments, and with the sheriff's office in this training, which is wonderful. And I just want to say hats off to them. And then tomorrow, we're going to have a half a day training for our school safety team coordinators. So every school has a coordinator and a team. And we're going to have a training tomorrow for half a day just to make sure that everybody is completely up to date on what our safety procedures are, like locking doors, safe space area, those types of things, what to do in a shooter situation. And so that'll happen tomorrow. And we're looking forward to that. And then also our capital improvement plan. You know, Jody does a great job with the capital improvement plan and preparing our schools to make sure that they are hardened and making sure that we need to make remodel and make adjustments where we need to keep our schools safe. And so hats off to you, Jody, and your department on that as well. So thank you very much. And then I think now we're going to have a video. Am I correct, Vlad? Are we having a video? The video is also to look at our construction within our school district. Now that it's hurricane season, we're working on shelters. We have 12 hurricane shelters here in our school district in which folks will shelter at different school sites. And the latest one is at Taylor Ranch. And that's what this video is going to show us. So we'll have a shelter in the south end of the district there.
And the people in that area are very happy about that because there's a real shortage in the Venice area of shelters.
Very good, very good. So as soon as that video comes up, we'll be all set. And that was the last item that I had, Madam Chair.
Hey Ed, how you doing?
Hey
Nice
guys,
seeing
good.
you.
Thank you.
This is Yannick from Gilbane Construction. We're going to walk through and take a look at some of the things we did here at Taylor Ranch Elementary to get this facility to become a usable shelter for this part of the county.
That's great.
And Yannick's going to come along with us and point some of those out.
So Steve, we replaced this original hollow metal door frame up, and it was one that meet all the criteria for the hurricane centers.
We took this whole assembly all the way to the brick finish and went into the brick finish and basically made that so it would be rated for any sort of impact or wind loads and that sort of thing, including the glass. And of course, we teamed up with Sarasota County Emergency Management, who helped fund it. So now we have 4 buildings on this campus that are now usable for occupants to come to for a weather event. So then let's look at one of the hurricane screens and how those work. So Ed, what we're looking at here are the screens that were designed for this school that we can deploy when there's a weather event to cover up these windows. They're impact rated. It's a Kevlar flexible material. And the nice thing about this is these stay rolled up and they only get deployed when we have a weather event. So it makes it easier for, custodial to clean or maintenance folks to work around these areas.
But the way it was designed is this is gonna just take the impact of any object without breaking the window behind it.
Right. Like a trampoline effect.
Yes.
So for maintenance purposes, we deploy these once or twice a year, and they'll deploy them all down and roll them back up. And then if and when we do need them, then they come out and put them down for
That's good. You don't want to wait till the event
Right.
to determine that one
Right.
of them's broken. We've been looking for a South County evacuation center for a while, and this is going to be great. Now, we still want to tell the public, though, that even though we have 12 of these throughout the county, they are a last resort. They're the
Right.
lifeboat. So if they can make other arrangements with friends or family or leave the area, that's probably preferable. But I'm glad that we have these for those folks that don't have another option. We really appreciate the partnership and with the school leadership and all of you guys. And this is great.
And thank you, Jody, and your department for doing a great job on that. And then one other item, Madam Chair. Just if anyone is interested in more details related to the FSA analysis and the numbers that we have, we are going to work through that at the next workshop, which is August the 14th, I believe.
I think so.
August the 14th is the workshop. And if anyone's interested, please, you can be here or watch it on TV as we go over the FSA information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown.
I just want to congratulate the superintendent and all of our staff for that A and for those increased points. 24 points increases is pretty spectacular, and we're going to continue to climb upward to do that. And I know it took considerable effort on your part and our staff part, and I know there were a lot of naysayers out there saying, it wasn't going to happen. But I'm so glad that you all stuck to it, and I really do believe we're going to continue on that thing. And I didn't know about this niche web. How do you spell that?
NICHE.
NICHE. Yeah, that's what I wrote down, but not a word I normally use. But I also am not surprised that we're the safest school district in Sarasota. I know our team is out there and they're doing very well. I had the South County newspaper interview me about our police department. And I bragged about how well qualified they are and how they train. I mean, people think that, they all go home on the summer, in the summer too. No, we've got staff that's here and our police officers are here and they do a lot of training. But I said, but even more important, it's what they do throughout the year, working with our administrators, they're partnering with them and the teachers and the relationships they're building with our students. Those relationships are what we have that are going to prevent an incident from happening. That they'll go around, they'll make sure all the doors are locked, and they'll check in on the teachers and make sure that those relationships are built. And I think that's more important to prevent it. I mean, I do have 100%, surely that they will intervene as needed. But I truly believe that, they'll help us prevent one and we won't have to test them on that. And thank you for the hurricane update, too, because a lot of people say their taxes, because we take a lot of part of their taxes. But that's one of the ways we give back to our community is those hurricane shelters that we build. And I think we're really ahead of the game in the other districts on that, too. I think we'd be rated very high. But thank you all for working so hard all summer. I almost feel guilty taking those 2 weeks off. But thank you all for working through it. And I know there was a staff training throughout the district this summer. And thank you all for working so hard.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I agree. So I just wanted to, again, echo the comments. Thank you so much to everyone in our district who worked tirelessly for students, for families, and that we were able to achieve the A. I know that is, again, a point of pride, and thank you to the superintendent. And it was a great superintendent's report. So I want to thank everyone and don't want that to be missed. And also, I remember being on the board during Irma, which I think was 2017. And so I appreciate that video. I know that was a wild time and for everyone in Sarasota. I'm sorry, everyone in Florida, but I know we had a lot of after incident discussions with our county partners and emergency management. So it's really wonderful to see the fruits of their labor work out. So Jody and your team, thank you so very much, and to the county. And I know, as was mentioned, this is a last resort, and knock on wood that we don't have to utilize that, but it really is great to see that. So thank you for sharing that. And then finally, I wanted to, as a risk management nerd that I am, you mentioned also about the police department and the ongoing training. And so if you think back to post-Parkland, we, again, Mr. Dumas was very much a part of that as we looked at investing a lot of our capital dollars in hardening our schools. And we were fortunately ahead of the trend when you look at a state level, but you can invest $25 million, I think, was what we did in the initial time, which is a lot of money. But to look at the position that our school district's in, and you look at the tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas, and I know we talked about this, again, another after incident report of saying, hey, what happened, what failures are there? And I believe those conversations are happening internally, and I want to make sure the community understands that. So God forbid we ever have to use those. But as a community, I think it's really important that you all know that those are moments that we all internally look in and say, okay, how do we flesh out what can we learn from that? And the big piece that I liked, Dr. Asplin, that you mentioned is that there's ongoing safety training, because you can spend all that money in infrastructure, but if we are not training people how to utilize that, that mitigation is key, to Mrs. Brown's point. So it was a great superintendent's report. So again, thank you so much. It just showcases a lot of the work that's being done. So I very much appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all. Next up, we have the hearing of citizens, and I think tonight we have 10 cards to speak about an agenda item. So at this point, we will be calling up the citizens to speak, and please make sure you speak to the board, not the audience. Further, speakers addressing the school board shall not make remarks which are irrelevant to the business of the school board or which are abusive, threatening, defamatory, obscene, profane, or otherwise of a disorderly nature. As such, it is not a forum for attacking individual employees or school board members. Any such complaints should be submitted in writing to the superintendent or the school board member. It's unlawful to disrupt or interfere with a school board meeting, and any such option may result in a misdemeanor or offense of the second degree. This is a business meeting of the school board, and the public expects that we conduct it in an orderly, efficient, effective, and dignified manner. We humbly ask that you act as you were taught as a child, be respectful of others, and treat them as you would want to be treated. Finally, as public service elected by the people of this county, we will listen with open minds and open hearts to your comments. We respect your First Amendment rights to freedom of speech, and as a citizen of this great country, you must understand that your rights are not absolute. So you are free to speak your mind, but you cannot defame an individual or yell fire in a crowded theater. With rights come responsibilities, and so we begin. Mr. Edwards.
Barbara Vaughn, Michelle Posey, you're on deck.
My name is Barbara Vaughn, and I live in Venice, so I'm very happy to hear what's happening at Taylor Ranch. Father God, we give you thanks and praise for this gathering today. We ask you to be with each person here, those who have special needs, as you know very well, Lord. Touch them where they need your touch. Heal their hearts, their minds, their bodies. Heal any sickness that's within them, Lord, and bring them back to full health. Lord, I ask you to be especially attentive to the combination of school board and the Florida Methodist Children's Home. I was happy to see on the agenda today that that is going to be a cooperative effort that I think, I hope, I pray, Lord, will be a serious benefit to the children, to their parents, and to all who are involved. Lord, again, I ask your presence and your attention to each person in this room. Bless them, bless those they care about, and bless this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen.
John Wilson, you're on deck.
Michelle Posey, District 3. Today I'm here to talk about Agenda Item 9. It's the approval of the revised Code of Student Conduct. It's regarding Item 300.3, the technology use, and it states that you want to be consistent with the goals for Sarasota County's acceptable use policy and social media guidelines. The acceptable use policy and social media guidelines weren't included on the agenda, but I was able to find them. They're 6 pages in length. On page 4, it actually states that the following activities are prohibited. Now, keep in mind, this is a child on our campus holding their phone, and these are the things that are prohibited. Accessing, copying, transmitting, or distributing threatening, offensive, inflammatory, pornographic, obscene, or otherwise inappropriate images, language, or material. So if I'm a Pineview student and I have my cell phone and I want to look at The Bluest Eye, which has obscene material, it's technically against your policy, but I can walk down the hall and pull it off our bookshelf. So we have a real issue here. Somebody obviously had the wherewithal to understand that our young people probably shouldn't be viewing obscene material on their phones, and I think that's wonderful. But this is not a parental rights issue. The masks were, but this is not a parental rights issue. We have obscenity laws in the state of Florida. They're very, very clear. It's not okay to give minors under the age of 18 or have access, allow them access to obscene materials. And there's no parental right that you're allowed to break the law. I'm going to speak more on this later, but I just really want to leave you with this. There is a clear tie between mental health and violence and young people who view sexually obscene or pornographic material. If we care about our children, we got to do something.
Teresa DeWitt, you're on deck.
John Wilson. Before I get started, I'd like to congratulate Chief Tim Enos on, I think he deserves the credit for being the #1 safest school district here in Florida. I want to go ahead and go through proficient, what proficient is. It's being skilled or good at something. So I went through the FSA data, and 2,798 kids took the FSA this year. Proficient, what the state considers proficient, is a 4 or 5, okay? 862 of those kids got a 4 or 5. The other amount of kids that aren't proficient was 1,936. That doesn't represent an A to me. I can't even fathom it. So let's go to Alta Vista. It was graded a B. 5 kids out of 82 are proficient at Alta Vista. 14 have a 3, 41 has a 2. I could talk to you about this data all day. The problem I have is the kids at our summer camp, all these 1s and 2s, the kids at summer camp are 1s, and they're going to get brought up to a 2, maybe even a 3. But all these children, 1,132 of them that are 1 and 2s, they're never going to catch up. Never. They're never going to catch up. But we'll push them on to the next grade. So when I sit in these workshops and we keep using the same programs that haven't been working, it is very upsetting. And I don't want to hear COVID, because I've gone back to 2015, 2014, you name it, way before COVID. But see, when it comes to these children, 1,132 children, these are someone's kids that are not proficient at reading. And they're going to get pushed on to 4th grade, and they're never going to get caught up. See, no one cares because they only care when it's their children.
Dr. Rebecca Lees, you're on deck.
Okay, Teresa DeWitt. So I'll be discussing number 11, which is the online science resource, and number 12, which is the online math resource. However, in the description of both, it identifies as curriculum. Now, these 2 programs' combined cost is over $800,000. So I have some questions to validity and necessity. The contracts seem to be missing today. Are these programs resource materials or curriculums? 2, if these programs are replacing face-to-face instruction, why are they not going through the curriculum state-approved process? 3, why is there not committees assigned to these online curriculums, including a parent, to participate on evaluating? 4, why is there not a pilot program before an $800,000 investment? Has there been a cost-benefit discussion or analysis? How many face-to-face minutes of the state-required science, math will be replaced by a computer? How are the children's identifying information protected from online hacking? Is there a modification tool for our ESC children? Where is the opt-out located in the missing contracts? So I would like to propose possible solutions to promote transparency to parents and to rebuild trust in future referendum dollars. 1, empower our business and marketing team to partner with our education scholars to search out pro bono programs before an $800,000 investment. A cost-benefit analysis presented to teachers and stakeholders. These online curriculums be made available through the district website for 30 days to generate informed comments at the assigned board meeting date. A community demonstration at the board meeting to include all citizens, and opt in to the online pilot program. In closing, my numbers are pretty simplistic in nature, but the example is with $800,000, the stakeholders could invest in 14 to 16 teachers, and our children could benefit from face-to-face instruction instead of a computer screen. Thank you.
Lisa Schur, you're on deck.
Good evening, Dr. Rebecca Lees, and thank you for the time to speak tonight. I'm here about item number 10, and I can't tell you how delighted I was to see that you are endorsing comprehensive school health education. I was just thrilled because so few schools around the country actually do that, and it is a critical part of overall health, what we call total health, for students and adults. I spent 35 years as a health education specialist and was the curriculum director and specialist for an entire district, K through 12, at a very elite school outside of Philadelphia, and then 29 years at Clarion University of Pennsylvania. And I was on CDC committees and have worked with comprehensive school health education my whole career. This is a great thing to empower students to keep themselves healthy and to learn to make great decisions and to learn critical thinking about whether it be from when they walk in McDonald's or any restaurant. There are always better choices. And a lot of this starts with awareness. And there are basically, the pie of health is made up of 5 parts. And a health education specialist is professionally trained to deal proficiently with all 5 of these. And I want to emphasize to you that, and this is no way to demean this kind of teacher, but PE teachers do not get proper training in health education. They only get a couple courses in their professional studies. A health education specialist spends their entire schooling studying all aspects of health: environmental health, social health, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, environmental health, all of these. And if you want this program to be good, hire a specialist. Thank you.
Angela Wynn, you're on deck.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Lisa Schur, and I'm the parent of a student in the district and a co-founder of Support Our Schools. I'd like to speak in support of Agenda Item 15, the contract with the Flippin Group. I did some research on the company's founder, Flip Flippin. His company was started in 1990, and he has a master's degree from Texas A&M. He spent 16 years working as a psychotherapist, working with gangs before starting the company. He's built an outpatient clinic treatment facility as well as a 500-acre residential treatment facility for boys in Texas. He and his wife have raised over 20 children themselves. Clearly, Mr. Flippin has significant practical experience in working with children facing serious mental health issues. He's not just some academic sitting in an ivory tower. The Capturing Kids' Hearts teacher training program is designed to, and I quote, equip professionals in K-12 education to implement transformational processes focused on social, emotional well-being, relationship-driven campus culture, and student connectedness. We're in a period now where our kids are suffering from unprecedented levels of mental illness, whether due to the after effects of the COVID epidemic, bullying, or general societal pressures. These kids need to have a skill set that helps them deal with these challenges. Certainly, we as parents should always be the first line of support for our children. Unfortunately, not all kids get the support that they need at home. Social and emotional learning provides a network of support for those kids, and it also provides a bit of a safety net for those kids who are indeed fortunate enough to have strong emotional support at home. I'd like to end with a quote that I saw the other day, which I think sums it up well. If a child can do advanced math, speak 3 languages, or receive top grades, but can't manage their emotions, practice conflict resolution, or handle stress, none of that other stuff is really going to matter. Thank you.
Paulina Testerman, you're on deck.
Hello, my name is Angela Wynn. I am the parent of a child in a Sarasota County public school. I'm also one of the co-founders of Support Our Schools. I'm here to speak in support of Agenda Item 15 and the approval of the grant-funded program for teacher training at Brookside Middle School. The climate of our country right now is volatile. Children are witnessing their parents spewing hatred and vitriol. They are seeing their parents acting violently toward anyone who doesn't agree with them. These same parents are teaching their children that it's okay to attack others. They're teaching them that it's okay to be prejudiced. They're teaching them that it's okay to lash out in anger. Our children are experiencing strife and anxiety like never before. Now, more than ever, we need to be promoting empathy in our kids. We need to be showing children how to manage their emotions instead of acting out like their parents. We need to be teaching our children how to be caring and how to make good decisions. Our classrooms should be a place that fosters trust and compassion, not a place of fear and anxiety like our Florida legislators have turned them into. Being able to engage all children all students, not just one group, one color, one religion, or one income level, but all children, and get them to participate and be active in their learning experience is a must for the betterment of our community. To be able to do that, our teachers know that they must teach in a culturally responsive way. The United States is a melting pot of cultures from around the world, different traditions, upbringings, languages, skin colors, religions. To be able to teach in a way that is inclusive and advances advances educational equity, while at the same time empowering students so that they are also able to foster safe and healthy relationships with others, is what we should be promoting, not tearing down. Relationships that are just and inclusive. Relationships that are compassionate and empathetic. Relationships where students lift one another up instead of tearing them down like their parents are doing is necessary, especially if we want to see our country progress and not regress, like so many people are trying to do.
Carol Lerner, you're on deck.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman. I am the co-founder of Support Our Schools, and I have 2 children in Sarasota County Traditional Public Schools. I'm here today to speak in support of agenda item number 15, approval of the contract between Sarasota School Board of Sarasota and Flippin Group. My heartfelt thanks to Sarasota County School Board for recognizing that children and education cannot be dissected into parts, that children must be educated as a whole. We cannot focus solely on reading, writing, and arithmetic because the goal of public education is to shape young minds so they can become contributing members of society. That means we must educate the entire student. We must ensure that students can manage their anxiety, emotions, impulses, and stress. We need to provide the necessary tools to combat these daily challenges so they can, in fact, function to the best of their abilities. The goal of education isn't rote memorization of your times tables. Instead, it is to ensure that students can transition into adulthood and that they can make this world a better place. Mental health is the foundation for learning. Without stable mental health, students cannot process, retain, learn, or memorize. Support Our Schools supports and encourages relationships with organizations whose objective it is to better prepare students for their futures. Thank you.
Alexis Spiegelman, you're on deck.
Good evening. My name is Carol Lerner. I'm the chair of Protect Our Public Schools and on the board of SOS. I would like to speak in support of item number 15 on the agenda, which asks for the approval of a grant-funded program called Campus by Design and Capturing Kids' Hearts to be implemented at Brookside Middle School. These 2 programs are a coordinated approach to transforming the school environment into a high-achieving centers of learning by creating a healthy social-emotional climate and creating connectedness at school and home. Yes, this program is based on social-emotional learning theories and concepts, an approach that helps students regulate their emotions and builds empathy, an approach loudly rejected by many in this room and by one member of our school board. I cannot wrap my head around why anyone would reject an approach that helps students build the skills that are prerequisites to learning. A child who lacks the skills for healthy social relationships, or a child who cannot regulate his or her emotions, is a child set up for failure. A child who is consumed with anger and or anxiety is a child who cannot concentrate on learning to read or absorb the intricacies of our nation's history. Studies have shown that children who lack empathy often grow up to be asocial adults who sometimes resort to criminal behavior, including mass murder. I am not saying that capturing kids' hearts is a cure-all for all these extreme ills, but it is a start. Yesterday, I watched a video where a school board member participated on a panel on school safety with fellow founders of Moms for Liberty and with Senator Scott at the Moms for Liberty Summit in Tampa last weekend. Mental health and SEL were dismissed loudly as indoctrination by the panelists and got one of the largest applause lines. The school board member just sat there and accepted that analysis and then went on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Alexis Spiegelman, Moms for Liberty, Sarasota. I wanted to talk to you today about agenda item number 12, but first I wanted to congratulate our school district on their safety ranking. I know Chief Enos deserves a lot of the credit for all of the work he did to set up our school police department, although I know he has since retired. Agenda item number 12, approval of the purchase of Dreambox supplemental online math resource. I'd like to know how, as a community stakeholders, we can gain access to this material and how it's vetted and how we can access all of the supplemental resources. In researching the vendor DreamWorks, I noticed that they were recently acquired by a left-leaning company and are collaborating with the United Nations Environmental Program Development. How can we be assured that we aren't importing more of the woke ideology if we are blindly purchasing from the same vendors that brought us the inappropriate materials in the first place? We would hope that the next generation of Americans will understand that it's probably not ideal to shut off our domestic fuel sources while giving our strategic supply away to hostile foreign enemies, or as the Dutch farmers will tell you, why it's not a good idea to institute policy that will lead to a self-induced famine. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. Madam Chair, that concludes the comments for agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Mrs. Ziegler.
Just have a quick question for the superintendent. Item number 10 regards, we have a consent item, item number 10 about the comprehensive school health education programs. And I've had a lot of questions about this leading up, and I know you just got back, and I hope you had a nice trip. But wanted to just clarify for the public, I know that there is a attached, so I appreciate this being attached, a notification that goes out to families. Can you or a member of staff speak to when that goes out and how it's delivered?
Yes, so this attachment, you're talking about the one-page attachment, correct, Ms. Eagle? Yes. So that is on the web page right now, and parents will be able to go on that web page and take a look at this information to see what we do in elementary, middle, and high. I will tell you that the state of Florida, the Department of Education, has 5 different options that a district can choose, and we have chosen the one that is abstinence. And so that is what this is basically revolves around, is the abstinence piece. And the Department of Health has a person who actually teaches the middle school and the high school piece, high school in our HOPE programs. And then in elementary school, our nurses teach those classes as well. And again, these are on the website, and there is a parent permission form for each one of these as to whether a parent wants to just teach their students at home in this category or have the school teach these items.
Madam Chair, may I follow up real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So again, and I appreciate that, and thank you for clarifying the different options that each district has. I think the question that I'd received from a handful, and this is ongoing, this is nothing new, even before the discussion of parental rights came up, as to how a parent opts in for those versus, so when do they receive that that letter? My understanding was at the beginning of the school year, and or are they directed in some way, or are they just expected to know? And really, just clarification for the public, are they expected just to go online, or is that produced to them in order to sign that?
That is a great question. Do you have that answer, Ms. Ellington? Oh, Mr. Slayton. Go ahead and come
you
up
better go to the mic.
microphone.
Right up to the mic.
Thank you. Yeah, so prior to any instruction being given, that notification will be sent out to parents, and then they will have the opportunity to obviously review the material and then opt in if they choose to. If they don't choose to, or on the form you can opt out, or if you don't turn it in, then you're automatically opted out.
May I follow up? Yeah. So that, thank you so much. So that is at the beginning of the school year, or when it is about to be presented? And again, this is a common question. I know you know that. So just for clarification on how that delivery, and I know that our parents at the beginning of the year, there's a number of communication mediums in which we, whether it be email, phone call, text message, robocalls, what have you, is that how they would receive this information?
Yes, ma'am. It's probably a combination of both. From elementary, typically it's in the spring. when that's delivered, so that communication wouldn't be sent necessarily in the fall because you're a long ways off. Middle school, because those Department of Health folks that are coming in to deliver that, they have to get across all of our schools, so we set up schedules, so that can vary when that's sent out. So it really determines based on when that curriculum is going to be delivered. So it's going to be prior to, and I would say it's around a month prior to it going out, they're sent home.
Okay, thank you.
And we can probably tighten that up a little bit as far as how we want to send that out. In the past, it's been with the students, but we have it on the website. The parents can all see that on the website, so that form is there for them to review and decide along with the curriculum.
Thank you so much. Just as a follow-up to Dr. Aspen, if I can request, I appreciate this, I know we need it, and I know it's a required aspect, so I like the direction we're going on that, but I do want to make sure, however we communicate that, it be streamlined, time frame, what have you. I'll defer to the superintendent for that, but I think it's in the best interest of both our staff and the families that it be streamlined across the board so that it doesn't, for lack of a better term, backfire in anyone's, particularly our staff, and so that it not be a disruption, and understandably so, that being always a common request or question about how that information, how they opt in, opt out, or how they access that information. Thank you so much.
And Mr. Slayton, we have always taught these classes with the abstinence model, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And we have always segregated boys and girls together, and before it was opt-out, and now it's opt-in.
As far as the segregation of boys and girls, that's not necessarily always happened in every school. It is kind of a school-to-school principal decision on is it
But anything
delivered.
sensitive, it's only boys or only girls, I was told. No,
It is a principal's decision at the school how it's going to be
Okay.
delivered. Is it going to be in a mixed group? Is it going to be segregated boys and girls?
But it hasn't been a problem.
Knock on wood.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, do we have any, Shirley Brown?
On that item, my understanding was that it used to be an opt-out, now it's an opt-in. Was that because of law, or is that the changes that we made?
That's been in place for quite a few years in the past, and it kind of goes back to if I didn't hear about it and my student is given that curriculum and I didn't know about it, so that's why we decided to go. It's been quite a few years that it would be an opt-in.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, do we have any additions or corrections to the consent agenda, Dr. Asplin?
One addendum was added to item number 8, the instructional classified personnel report.
May I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Please vote. Where's the box?
Refresh.
This is getting so annoying. And the motion, Mrs. Brown, did you vote?
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Excuse me one moment while I adjust my screen. Okay. And next up, we move on to new business.
Yes, Sarah Dan, our Director of Food Service,
Yes.
will share just for a moment.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you. So, as you may or may not be aware of, the end of this school year ended the waivers that allow us to feed all students for free. And so, going into the school year, we've had increased meal costs associated with just the unprecedented the effects of the pandemic and the supply chain issues. And just some examples, raisins that we use at breakfast have gone from $57 a case to $74, olive oil $58 to $83 a case, canola oil increases, peppers, milk prices, and just to give you a rough idea, it's gone from $23 a case to $34. Any given day, we use close to 2,000 cases of milk in our school district. So and then also with the ruling on the $15 and above, we have just seen unprecedented increases along with increases in participation. So with that being said, we are proposing meal price increases to offset some of those financial challenges that we'll be facing for next school year. And so I just wanted to bring those to the board so that they could be voted on. Are there any questions?
Mrs. Brown.
Right. I thought I read where the they were going to extend those free lunches, or it could be one of those things where Congress passed, but it didn't pass in Senate, or.
So there have been a couple of bills that have come forward. Two of them, one of them did not pass. That was to extend free meals for all students throughout the nation. Some states have gone to adopt and offered free meals. Florida is not one of those states. It's called the Keep Kids Fed Act. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mouthful, which has passed. It does extend some waivers, but it's not for free meals. There was a provision in that act to feed all students that qualify for reduced price meals for free, but they struck out of the bill. So there's waivers in case of an insurgence of the pandemic for parents to pick up meals, that sort of thing. But unfortunately, there's some increased funding. But again, that bill passed at the end of June. We're still awaiting what that looks like for our community, how the state of Florida is going to interpret it. But there's no funding for free meals, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Stan, could you just quickly point out where families can access or expect to get a application for free or reduced breakfast or lunch?
Absolutely. So any of our families that are concerned that they are going to need financial assistance next year, they can go to our website, go to Food and Nutrition Services. It's an automated process. They apply online. That application went live this morning because we had to receive our first download of our students that may be directly certified who automatically qualify for meal benefits. But any of our other families, it's based on household size and income. And so we're really encouraging it's anonymous. And if our families feel like they're in need, we hope that they'll take the time to fill it out. It's an easy application. We have new software. We have a staff member who's dedicated to that, and she really is just so. Our entire team wants to make sure that our kids are fed so that they can just perform the best they can academically.
And if they don't have access to online, is there a phone number that they can get help?
Sure. They can call our office, which is 941-486-2199, and we'll assist them. They can go to a school that's open, and our managers or staff will assist them. And we do have paper applications if needed, but we really just are trying to get the word out and make sure our families, if they are in need of assistance, and that they realize that it is anonymous. A student will swipe at the cash register or put their PIN number in, and their information, another student's not going to know if they're on some sort of meal assistance.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Edwards?
I know Craig Maniglia has a whole communications plan behind that free and reduced lunch to get that information out, because it is important that we provide that assistance as much as possible. When I first got here, and this is more for the benefit of the board to understand why something is coming up on workshop. 2 years ago, when I got here, there was a $5 million delta on which had to be paid for by the general fund. As a school board member, it's my fiscal responsibility to make sure the fiscal health of our school district stays sound. Last year, we didn't have to deal with that $5 million delta coming from the general fund because it was compensated by the government due to the pandemic. But I did ask for this to go back onto a workshop agenda because that is not sustainable, and we need to figure out how we're going to deal with this moving forward.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mrs. Rose, for that point, because I think historically, I think it's important to understand that we had all families file for free and reduced lunch, and then the last couple of years, it was, I think it's 2 years, was available to every family. Is that correct?
Yes. We've also been accepting applications throughout. Some districts chose not to do that. There's other resources that are available to our families that qualify for free and reduced, discounts on testing. They can get discounts on cable. So we have chosen throughout the entire time to make sure that we're still taking applications. The other thing is our team is extremely resourceful, and so we've pulled together throughout. And at times when it's looked pretty bleak for us financially, we've risen to the occasion. We feel like we're going to do that as well, but we also feel like we need to be financially responsible, and so that the funding of the school lunch program is not coming from our free and reduced students, that it's shared equitably throughout our paid families as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that. Just it's always hard. Again, things move so fast, and anytime anything is taken away, it's kind of an adjustment. So I wanted to outline that historical aspect of it. And I know you and your team, and I've had the privilege of working with them, and they are wonderful. And so thank you for everything you guys do. But when anyone listening or seeing that, it's a bit of a shock, and I understand that. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And to Mrs. Rose's point, there are ways to apply. It's anonymous, and that, there's no judgment. It's just to see if that option fits for you. Yeah. The other part that I think is important, and so when I look at these numbers, and I did quick math, and so if you looked at the screen that you put before, and I didn't do all of them, but you're looking at 22% increases when you're looking at costs of volume. And so do we have a sense that when we're doing this price increase, and I understand there's an aspect where we have to respond so that you can be solvent and such, to Mr. Edwards' point that there was that we supplemented it through general fund before, but then these are adjustments being made. So what is the increase percentage-wise that our families are going to see?
Yeah, it is a quarter increase per across the board.
Okay.
So it's just a quarter. We felt like that was reasonable. We're hoping with the funding, because there is some increased funding that is promised to us for breakfast and lunch with the Keep Kids Fed Act.
Okay.
We're hoping with the offset of that, we didn't want to do anything higher than that. It's obviously increased prices sometimes it will cause a decrease in participation.
Right.
So it's kind of balancing. We're trying not to do too much, hopefully doing enough, and then we're anticipating supply chain issues into next school year as well. So what does that look like? There's a lot of unknowns, and hopefully our goal is to provide nutritious, appealing meals to our students so that they'll continue to eat with us, because you can get a lot of food for that. In the case of a high school school student for $3.25.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to say to the families, this is not taken lightly. We understand that everyone's feeling the pinch with inflation, with et cetera. And I think that we also have the fiduciary responsibility to balance that out. So I appreciate you walking through that for anyone listening. And again, I know that Mr. Maniglia will be putting out lots of information for our families to alleviate any of the financial stress that happens. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that there was a day when you were a revenue-generating, very profitable business. Yeah. And that seems like a while back, right, Sarah? I mean, I think it may have been as Beverly was leaving, that things began to change a little bit.
Well, and the world kind of changed right at that time, too.
Exactly right. But you do cook real food. It is really good food, and there's a lot of options for kids. It's when I was in school, which is 100 years ago, it was one meal. You got one meal, and that was it: a peanut butter jelly sandwich and a cup of vegetable soup, or whatever. But you only had one meal. I mean, I am amazed at how many different offerings we have for students. So if there's allergies or anything else, or disinterest in certain things, there's plenty of opportunities for good quality food. What I worry about the most is our high school students who are ashamed to say, I need some help. And that's where I think, lag the most, is on those high school students. So I'm hoping the families, because it's confidential and easy to do, and there is any distinction made at the lunch counter, I'm hoping that these families will go in and fill that out this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the areas when I came in as the director. I also was a new high school student parent,
yes.
And I realized, probably in just a different scope, that we definitely have an opportunity to benefit our high school students in many ways, and so that they are receiving nutritious meals and fueled up to learn. So we're looking forward to being able to really focus on that area and attract, because there's definitely room for growth. And we're excited.
And I see a high school teacher in the audience that I might have to chat with about this, but I think it's important that we try to make an effort in our high schools, the beginning of the year, to make sure that these students are getting fed, because I think some of them aren't. So,
yeah.
But thank you for all you do and your staff. I mean, you have such a wonderful, wonderful department. And you have gone through many challenges over the last few years, and thank you for all of your leadership and your guidance and your sweet, loving care that you do in that capacity, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Our team has, I'm so proud of them. They have done an amazing job and weathered a lot of uncertainty and still stayed strong. So I'm really proud of them, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move the approval of the 2022-2023 Food Nutrition Services meal price.
Second.
Please vote. And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item up is item number 37. May I have a motion, please? That the school board approve the new job description for district media specialists as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
And now we'll have some discussion. Dr. Asplin?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to approve a new job description for district media specialists. We have one for a school media specialist, but as you probably know, I believe it was back during the recession, one of the choices was to eliminate the media specialists from each of the libraries in the schools across the district and replace them with media technicians. But media specialists is very important because House Bill 1467 that was signed into law requires that a person have a certification of media specialists in vetting library books as they arrive into our schools and so forth, to make sure that we have the correct books and that they are in the correct level in the correct schools. Just to read this to you, just so you have it, in House Bill 1467, part of that says school librarians and media specialists and other personnel involved in the selection of school district library materials must complete the training program developed before reviewing and selecting age-appropriate materials and library resources. Now, the training won't be ready until January of 2023, but we want to get a jump on this and really start looking at the media centers and the books that are in the media centers and vet those properly. At the same time, the next section says each book made available to students through a school district library media center or included in a recommended or assigned school or grade level reading list must be selected by a school district employee who holds a valid educational media specialist certificate, regardless of whether the book is purchased, donated, or otherwise made available to students. And like I said, we don't have any. So what I'm asking is for 3 district media specialists, not one for every school in every media center, but 3 district media specialists, one in the north, one in the central, and one in the south, to help us vet our library books and any donated books or teacher classroom libraries as well, to make sure that they are vetted properly. And it has to be a media specialist.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards.
Dr. Asplin, would you qualify that 1557 as an unfunded mandate?
I would say in our case, yes, since we don't have media specialists.
I want to sort of point that direction at Bonnie, if I can. We're becoming fast friends. I would like, if we can, begin to categorize unfunded mandates. I think it's important for the public to understand what happens in general as an unfunded mandate. So my next question is, if I may, what is the total of that addition that we're going to be taking on for those 3 specialists?
Media specialist is paid, I believe, a teacher's salary, which when you add benefits, it's around $85,000 times 3. What is that?
A lot. 250.
That's close enough. I just want, for the purposes of, and obviously we're going to follow through with this, and I think it's all a good idea. But I think it's important for the public to understand that these types of bills or these types of requirements come to the school district, that we have to do it, and there's no funding attached to it that makes it affordable for us to do it. And it has to be, for example, that is, could have been money that was used for teacher salaries. So we're always talking about how to, or salaries in general. So my next question is for Mr. McKinley. Does that 1557 apply to charter schools as well as private schools?
I don't believe that it does.
No.
Once again, an unfunded mandate for the benefit of public schools.
Charter schools don't have libraries, most of them. I mean, that's why it wouldn't apply.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown.
I'm sorry to butt in, but
Thank you.
And are you done? Yes. And now Mrs. Brown.
well, I know there's a lot of teachers out there that are saying, I've got a lot of books in my classroom. What are we supposed to do? And I've heard some districts that took anything out of their schools that had anything to do with LGBT and donated it to an association. And I've been asked, are we going to be doing that? I know that over the years that my daughter has taught kindergarten, I have bought many books from the Kohl's Care program, where they have the Carlisle books and all these other books, and the Pinkalicious books and Disney books and the Scholastic. There's a book, they put, when they put out their spring and their fall magazines, where there's a $1 book in there, and I'll buy those for the classroom, and I'm sure other parents do too. I mean, are they now supposed to take all these books out? I mean, or you can't give her these books anymore unless it gets approved? Does she have to take all those books out of her classroom, or what?
Well, I will tell you at this point, we decided to not purchase any or receive any donations until we can have the proper personnel here to be able to vet the new books coming in. And their job will also be to vet the old books as they've been coming in year after year after year. But that's where we are at this point in time. So right now, we're not receiving donated or purchasing any new books until we have the proper personnel.
So last week, when Kohl's had some books on clearance that I purchased for her classroom, I can't give her those yet. or she can't take the one she bought into her classroom yet either. I mean, and I would think just to go through her classroom, if you're going to read the whole books, I mean, somebody's going to be in her classroom for a week. I mean, and the training doesn't even start until the 23rd.
Till January of 23.
January 23rd. So is she supposed to go in and box up all those books? Or we'd leave them like they are? And I mean, they're kindergarten books. You know, they're not Dick and Jane, but, you know, they talk about how butterflies, you know, come about, and frogs and leaves and pumpkins. And so we don't, well, I guess you can't answer because we don't all know that answers. We don't have all the information yet from DOE, and and I'll just kind of go.
Yep, thank you. You're very generous, and you've always been very generous with books and things, Mrs. Brown. But I personally am not going to take any books into school to read to children. I'm going to get a book at the school. Because until this is ferreted out, I don't want to be accused of bringing in the wrong book or having a book that isn't approved. And I don't think we can even bring a book in to read that isn't approved. And that's, and that's all I know. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. So, you know, I think I understand this seems to be a emotional topic, but I want to put things in perspective. One, I appreciate the generosity that we have in our community that wants to provide books or supplemental material. But if we take books out of it and you think of a video, we wouldn't let anyone from outside take a video without it being vetted. And that is our responsibility. We have young children anyway from ages 5 to 18. And I think it is our responsibility to properly vet any material, whether it be on a bookshelf, whether it be in a video library or what have you. So I just want to put those in perspective. And also I understand that our head of instructional materials has had an incredible task above him and whoever would be in that role anytime. And so I am glad that we are able to provide additional supports. We have seen a time in which, as I would say, that there's just more and more information or differences of opinion, or even that I think it was even said that in the last 15 years or so, that has kind of been a change in the style and content of books in general. And we have our responsibility to understand and celebrate the diverse community that we have, but also respect the fact that it's diverse and stay within those guardrails that we are expected to do. So I will happily approve this and just wanted to put things in perspective and move forward.
Mrs. Brown.
Well, I would hope that the legislature, if they're going to tell us that we have to do this in our public schools, that any schools that our dollars go to, the charter schools, because they've got classroom books. They might not have a library, but they've got classroom books. And there are private schools that get vouchers from us. That, I mean, I would think we have that same responsibility. I would hope you go through those libraries in your children's classrooms to make sure that somebody has looked through those books to make sure they're age appropriate. I mean, I just think that we should all be looking at all schools. I mean, and I still, you know, I don't know one that's in the kindergarten class that shouldn't be in there yet, but I welcome anyone to come in and look.
If I could add
yes, please.
something to that. Yeah, I think I don't want to say difficult. The piece here is that in the legislation, it's written specifically about a media specialist certification. That's what makes it difficult, because we have 2,700 teachers, 2,800 teachers. And if the legislation were perhaps amended to say, you know, even if it was the English certified teachers, that would allow us to have more people. Even if they're trained in the proper criteria that the state would like, we'd be able to get through it a lot faster. In our situation, since we don't really have, and Rob Manugini does a marvelous job, unbelievable job. He's been working all the books in the whole district by himself. I think. But to have, and he is a media specialist, but I think that's part of the issue, is it's not about I'm going through and vetting all the books, which they have been by educators. It's just now they need to be vetted by specific certification media specialists, in which we do not have them in our school district.
And the reason we do not have media specialists in our school district is because during the recession of 2007, 8 to 12, we cut media specialists, librarians from elementary schools first, and then cut them from middle and high schools. And it was supposed to be a temporary cut, but basically today, most students use this or a computer, and many of our libraries in middle and high school are not used purely to check out books and so forth, but used as a special place to go and have meetings and so forth. Mr. Edwards.
So I just want to finish up. I think it's great that we're in that process of vetting books. What I was more concerned about is that it's equal across the board in all schools. I understand that charter schools don't have libraries, but to what Mrs. Brown did say, that books arrive in classrooms and they need to be vetted in all schools, and that was the point that I was making. And finally, if the legislature, and I think it's important that everyone understand this, particularly our public, when they want things done at schools and they press the legislature to do it, it comes with a price tag. Add that to the legislation.
Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a clarification that vetting books in any school that is under the Florida Department of Education is age old. As a teacher, principal, we've all had to assure that any book in a teacher's classroom, any book being read, et cetera, meets the standards supporting the state benchmarks, and every principal is responsible for that. And I'm excited to know that we're bringing media specialists on board. I think that is a huge positive in a multitude of ways. So the expectation to vet books is not new with this legislation. It's something that we have always been required to do. Thank you.
Please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. We're on a roll, folks, tonight. It's pretty good, huh? I like that. Moving on to the next item, which is item number 38. Might I have a motion, please?
I move that the board agree to schedule a private meeting for the safety and security matters. This is one of the things that are agreed to, that we can meet in the shade to discuss certain safety measures in our schools.
Second.
Second.
It's
August
August 16th at the conclusion of our
Work session.
work session.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Surprisingly, the motion carries unanimously. And now we're on to announcements. Does anyone have an announcement? And guess who's first? Mrs. Brown.
This goes back to item 37, and I wanted to clear up because I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing that Ms. Rose is saying that we've always had to have media specialists, and we've always vetted books.
I didn't say we always had to have media specialists.
But that we've always vetted these books. But I heard from the superintendent that now that you have to have a media specialist that does it, and that we have to these people have to have the training that isn't even there yet, that they're putting it in place. That's what's different. That's what I believe Mr. Edwards was talking about, was the unfunded mandate and the extra costs that are put onto this. So while we always have made sure that the books and the classrooms are age appropriate, and I believe our schools have age appropriate literature in their classrooms because I trust our teachers, this new requirement that we have media specialists that have had the training, that is the new requirement, and that is the unfunded mandate that Mr. Edwards was talking about.
Mrs. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, too, wanted to add a huge congratulations to our teachers for maintaining the exemplary status of being in a district, which is one of 2 districts in the state of Florida since its inception. And that is a huge wow. And congratulations to all staff, district staff, our families, and our students for hanging in there. And absolutely, Dr. Asplin, you deserve a big hurrah for being the leader of maintaining an exemplary A. I do want to add just 3 pieces where what I will be emphasizing as we approach the beginning of the year, and I want to bring it to your attention and let the community know where I stand. And I would like to see an emphasis and a progress monitoring as one board member, just my voice, in our workshops on to look at bullying. It was one of the things that stood out in the parent survey, and it's something. And I'm not saying we don't have great schools. We absolutely have great schools, students, families, and support. But it's a piece that we can't ignore, and I would like to see it publicly addressed and monitored. Secondly, I would like to see a focus on the lower quartile in reading, where we have the opportunity to visibly see it move and know what you're continuing to do with the leadership that has proven to work well. And lastly, looking at the economy having to raise the price of breakfast and lunch, the rentals, the cost of homes, et cetera, and the challenges that families are having. I would very much like to have a workshop on a community program, something that we looked at a few years ago. The board was different at the time, and just for purposes, information purposes for our community at large, that is a program that puts all kinds of services on a campus, from medical to mental health to instead of families having to go out into the community, into different agencies, all of that is housed on the campus. And given where we are and the challenges that we have in our title schools and the socioeconomic challenges, I would very much, I will be continuing to emphasize that piece. So those 3 pieces I will be continuing to, for lack of a better word, push. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards.
I had on my list for this part of the evening to also commend Dr. Asplin and our team for that A in the school district. I know some of us talked about it on the front end of the meeting. I think it's important also to acknowledge, and the teachers obviously were above and beyond the call of duty all the time, but the students worked hard. They really did, in and out and in and out, and the combination of the student work and the teachers. And I think it's also to say Sarah Dan, her team, feeding students in and out, feeding students while your staff was in and out, bus drivers, I mean, go right down the list. It was a challenging year. In every way, shape, and form, and everybody pulled together as a team. Administrators, teachers, support, classified. I can't thank everyone enough, students included. I'd like to also thank our STAR students who sat quietly through the entire meeting. You did wonderful. I enjoyed meeting you earlier today, and I encourage you to constantly reach out to the board. Give us your feedback. Tell it to your friends. It's important that we hear from you. So I want to keep that going. And lastly, on school security, I have to say that since I've been a board member, I have not missed one swearing-in ceremony. I have shaken the hand of every new SRO since I've been here as a board member. And I will tell you that the team that is put together, the people that go out to our schools that not only care about the security but care about the well-being and the health and it's amazing. So I want to make sure that everyone in the school security gets a pat on the back. And Chief Oakes, keep up the good work.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to highlight, I know today is the 19th and our recalculation of the FEFP came in today. I know you work finance department and Bonnie's working on it fast and furiously. We don't have the budget book yet, but there are two areas that I wanted to highlight. And I know Dr. Aspen and Mrs. Penner, we've spoken about this as well, but as we move into our next budget hearing on Thursday, and there's no other way to do this as a board. I wanted to highlight there's two areas that I think are really important, and we didn't have a budget workshop. I think typically, I know we're fitting a lot in, but usually we have one more maybe beforehand to kind of get a sense of where we're going. And especially on the heels of when we have, raising the prices of food, responding to just the economics that we're all dealing with from an inflation standpoint. I'd like to see us adjust our consumable line item supplies to help support our staff so that they are not dipping into their own pockets, because it's not as if they are not feeling that on their own. And if we look, and again, I know we don't have that final amount, but when we looked at the tax rate increase, we were looking at 24%. So I don't know what that comes back to us, but I'd like to see what that is. And immediately prior to adoption, have that line item increased. I could give some arbitrary numbers, but I think it's a little bit more methodical. But again, I know we're coming back on Thursday and then advertising it on the following Tuesday, and I think that needs to be a priority. And then the final area is, again, when we look at the unreserved fund balance, I know, and we talked about this, and I know there's a lot of things that Dr. Aspen's looking about in the future as we open schools, but as we look at the grades and the school grades and the results, and there's some amazing things to celebrate, and I do not want that to be diminished, but there are also areas that we absolutely need to be focused on, and it is glaring in our face, and it's on that lower quartile. And so while it's not necessarily in a specific fund, and I know, again, we talked about this, but I would like to see us earmark however we can, 5 million, whatever it is. And I'm using arbitrary numbers. I'd like it to be more scientific. I've looked at the data as far as those schools, but where we can specifically earmark dollars that will go to support our lower quartile students, and it be specifically to those classrooms, so that it's support services. I'll defer to the superintendent, but as a board, we do have the authority and the power of the purse to utilize the resources that we have. And this is a unique year where, again, I know that it's not recurring. We're looking at the property increases that are bringing in more revenue. So until we have those final numbers, I can't give you specifics. But for me as one board member, I think that's an incredible priority. I think it's something we talk about as a board collectively. So moving into Tuesday, or moving into Thursday and then Tuesday, and that's not much time, but I'd like to make it public and also tell my colleagues, since I can't do it in any other format, that is a priority of mine, and I'd like to see if we can evaluate what those options are as priorities to help support our staff, our families, and certainly our lower quartile to move them forward. Thank you.
Did you push the button by mistake, Mrs. Brown?
Nope.
Okay, Mrs. Brown.
I too wanted to look closer at the budget, because I understand that, since we had the last budget talk. Normally, we do have a workshop in July to talk about the budget. And so I hope that we don't have a 15-minute budget meeting like we normally have. I hope that there is a budget where we're presented the information, how much more money are we getting in because of the property values increase? How are we spending those dollars? And in talking about those consumable supplies that teachers were able to get, I'm hearing from teachers that they can't get from the warehouse anymore. And I thought I sent an email out on that, and I don't believe I got an answer, that, they can't get those supplies anymore. And now they're going to have to come up with buying them themselves this year. I mean, is that accurate, that we don't have the warehouse for the teachers to get supplies anymore?
It's operating differently than it was before.
It's operating differently, but they can still order supplies?
Things that have to be ordered on their own that they could have gotten from the warehouse before.
So now they have to order them themselves. Perhaps maybe we can put a notice out to the teachers on how they go through that.
Very quickly. Thank you.
I'm hearing from a few teachers that don't understand that they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to go through and do that.
Okay, sorry. So the classroom supply money that you're talking about that goes to the teachers is still in place and working as it always has been. In fact, we're looking at making it somewhat better this year. Teachers have never used that money to go to the warehouse.
Right.
We don't have cash registers at the warehouse, so that's not the way it's happened. The teachers would always go in Walmart, Office Depot, wherever they happened to go, and then they would turn in their receipts to justify those dollars. So we're going to try to change that a little bit, but the dollars go to the teachers, and again, they have never used those dollars to purchase from the warehouse.
I've been in a classroom, and I know they get like large sheets of colored paper and stuff from some place. They get them from the district.
Sure, and that's the schools would make purchases with their discretionary budget.
So it's the schools themselves, because I always thought they were telling me, I'll talk to the school and get more information on that. And I also want to follow up with what Ms. Rose said, and having services at the schools. I know we used to have full-service schools, and they got shut down. Thank you. And I know that I was supportive of communities in schools, and we have some people in the audience who were working with us on that, and then all of a sudden it got shut down. And I thought we were re-looking at that again to have that service, and I'd like to talk more about that perhaps at our workshop on where we are on getting that moving forward.
It's a community school, and we looked at it for Gosho.
Right.
And I know some people in the audience, Carol Lerner, for example, is a very active supporter of that. But there's a lot involved that we were not ready for, and that's why we did not.
Yeah, but I understand that the superintendent knows about that and was perhaps looking into that. So I'd like to, get maybe an update on where we are on that. Thank you.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes, and point of reference, I understood Dr. Asplund to say that there is a community school program where all defined by all those resources, instead of going to agencies, are located on the school, that you did have one at St. John's. And given that we're looking to model some things from St. John's, I will be continuing to push that, and thank you, Mrs. Brown, for reinforcing it. Secondly, and perhaps I agree, there definitely needs to be clarification. As a principal, we allotted funds, and it's probably what Mrs. Brown has been hearing about, out of our discretionary dollars, anywhere from $50 up to $200, where they could fill out a warehouse list and get things relatively at a very low cost, and it's something teachers always looked forward to. It seems like something has gone awry with that, and I don't believe that it's at the district level unless that discretionary piece has changed. But something is amiss at a time when teachers are pushed to the limit economically. I would too like to see that we look at that relatively quick, so they have a ways and means to get those basic supplies, chalk, colored paper, paper clips, scissors, etc., at our warehouse at that low rate. Thank you. It did exist.
And I will say, to echo that, Mrs. Rose, that it was not only our schools that were able to access those materials from the warehouse, but our charter schools were as well. So the first place I heard about it was from a charter school who said, "Hey, what has happened here?" And so yeah, there was a difference there. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, because I think we all, and I did speak to Mr. Dumas on this because I had read it and heard about it from a handful of teachers and such, but. And so I want to make sure there's clarity, because it seems that there is not. So I don't know if it would be an ample time to address it, since we're all talking about it right now. I know we need to keep moving, but since it's clear none of us know what changed. But at one time, to Mrs. Rose's point, that there was a warehouse, but it seemed that there's something had changed. And I don't want to speak for you, and I don't want to share this incorrectly. So Dr. Aspin, if you want to address it, but I do think this would be high time to address that there was an adjustment, something to the effect of reducing cost of travel for gas, et cetera, and efficiencies, but there may be a need to communicate this properly, because it seems that there is clearly some miscommunication or misunderstanding. And again, I go back to, and I think all of us, we don't want our teachers scrambling last minute and utilizing their own dollars, especially if there's our discretionary funds, which I'd like to increase as well.
So some of the history I don't quite have, but for several years the warehouse has been toning down, and they have stopped carrying, and now they're all but shut down, other than carrying regular copy paper. So that was something that, again, was started several years ago, and so we no longer have a warehouse that has chalk and pens and pencils and some of those other types of items, and they were not used, and I'm sorry, I thought you meant the classroom supply assistance money, which goes to teachers and then they buy whatever they want. That's different. But the schools would use the warehouse to buy just regular classroom supplies, office supplies, things like that. And again, the warehouse was slowly reduced, and it is no longer carrying anything other than that. And the issue, I think that what we're seeing come to a head is that we've got inflation right now. So prices are rising. So, but there's no nothing to say that we wouldn't have experienced those higher costs for what we were selling through the warehouse or providing the schools through the warehouse. In fact, our costs of delivery would have gone up because of fuel, things like that. So our costs from the warehouse to get those items to the schools would have gone up even more. So again, it was a decision made several years ago, and it was slowly brought offline. And now there's only the copy paper that's coming through the warehouse. There's so many opportunities. I'm sure this is one of the reasons that the warehouse was brought offline, is there's just so many ways that you can get products delivered. You can get them delivered without there being, fees for shipping and all. And it was just bottom line decision.
And it's a restocking and stocking situation too. And I know part of it was procurement talking, because I've had discussions with Tracy about that. But there are a lot of difficult decisions that were made because it was more efficient for them to not have those restocking and stocking fees and all of the things that are involved in that. I guess we were looking for some cost savings on that side of the house.
Madam Chair, may I just follow up? And I appreciate that. Thank you. And I understand this has been a year or so, the timeline, but again, there's a communication piece where I worry that, if even hearing from board members and then certainly members of staff. So I think that is, especially as we head into the new year, my understanding is we have a contract with Amazon Marketplace or something of that nature that replace. And again, I do not want to I don't want to add information that's going to cause more confusion. But I think it's indicative of there needs to be some clarity as to what replaced what Mrs. Rose just mentioned as that went offline, so that we aren't requiring any member of staff to as I say, that's our responsibility to fund our classrooms with those supplies. So what are we doing? How are we communicating it? Is that something that we can even share right now, or are we?
We'll have to look into it.
I think we have to look at it. We can't do it right now.
Maybe Mr. Dumas.
And I think that this is especially is when you're talking with elementary schools. An elementary teacher in the fall might need 6 pieces of green paper in her class. And they might need this. And when you buy construction paper, You either get 144 pieces of one color, or you get a box that has all of these, and then you'll have these other colors that you never wanted. But in the fall, they need orange and brown and green. And I think that we need to do something.
Prohibitively expensive now. I think that's part of the problem.
But it's more expensive for each teacher to have to buy all these colors. I mean, maybe we can work with our principals at our elementary schools to have a supply of those colored papers that we used to have in the warehouse. So if the warehouse can't give them, I mean, can we at least make them available in the elementary school office?
Well, you know, kind of Ms. Penner and I tag team on a bunch of stuff, and so I'm just coming up to provide some history. And I think in terms of how teachers can buy supplies, now there are multiple contracts in place with Amazon, Office Depot, multiple contracts, state contracts that we have in place for them to purchase directly from those particular sites. So a teacher currently has a lot of options in front of them where they can purchase whatever materials they want coming in through either the allocation coming from the state, as Ms. Penner described, or through discretionary funds coming from the school site. I think the conversation is whether it's warehousing or whether we're buying directly from vendors, like I think most districts have transitioned to. You know, warehousing is kind of a thing of the past, keeping stuff on shelves. So I think we've gone in the right direction. I think the question now is the buying power of the dollars from the discretionary funds that schools are able to allocate. So I think, Ms. Ziegler, that's kind of what you're talking about, is maybe we need to review what that looks like for each teacher, because no matter it's warehousing or whether we're buying from an Amazon or Office Depot, fact of the matter is the $200 or whatever is coming from the school to the teacher is buying less now than it did 2-3 years ago. So maybe that's part of the budget conversation moving forward as to what that looks like.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes, and I'd like to mention that teachers are publicizing, I believe it's on Facebook, a wish list that a lot of families are stepping up to, and board members have contributed, and I think the community's doing their part. The cost of living is outrageous, and as we go forward, it's not going to change the ability for teachers to pay rent or buy a home, but it certainly shows a good faith effort if we have some kind of formal, whether it's Amazon or such, of what kind of expenditure in supplies. And I don't want to leave out, I don't want to focus just in on elementary, having half my career in elementary and the other half in middle school. They like hands-on just as much, and it's a best practice. So I think that you're hearing from us that we'd like to show a good faith effort that we're providing starting fees for supplies for teachers. Thank you.
And we all know that people don't like change.
Very true.
There we go. Okay. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 2nd at 6 p.m. 2 tentative budget and millage meetings are scheduled for July. The first will be this Thursday, July the 21st at 4 p.m. And the following will be Tuesday, July the 26th at 5:15 p.m. And the second tentative budget meeting will also have a couple of items and an agenda for approval of those 2 action items at the end of the portion on the budget. That makes sense? And if that is all we have, I think that we can adjourn and go to our general comments. We're adjourned. And next up, Mr. Edwards, would you call the first person up, please, to speak? I think we have 5 people who have asked to speak on general items.
Michelle Posey, John Wilson on deck.
Thank you, Michelle Posey, District 3. So I want to make absolutely sure what we're talking about here. I don't want to confuse the term unfunded mandates with the illegal mandates that actually cost this district $136,000. thanks to you. Actually, House Bill 1467 is the correct one. Simply states all personnel who are selecting library materials must complete training. There's no call for any new positions. I don't know, maybe they figured that a current position would be able to do this. It's just like receiving more training for your job position. Apparently, the vetting of material needed to be streamlined, and the legislature felt that. And I stand here time and time again as proof of that. My advice is free: remove the obscene material. Our board counsel, Dan DeLeo, was, actually I was interviewed too, but he was interviewed and he said, you know, the council stated that we can't even be sued for the obscene material because there's no damages. There's actually well-documented ties to early sexualization, porn use, and even obscene material with the mental health and stability of our youth. I had the pleasure this weekend of speaking to a board member of the Florida Department of Education. His name is Ryan Petty, whose beautiful daughter Elena was murdered in the Parkland shooting. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Commission noted that the Parkland shooter had videos and print material riddled with obscene material, which grew more violent as he got older. My limited research shows a striking similarity to a lot of school shooters. YourBrainOnPorn.com lists 112 studies linking obscene material and pornographic content to many violences, including rape, sexual aggression, sexual coercion, and even the increased depressed mental state of our young girls. I have a young girl, so this really ticks me off. DeLeo, I would argue our kids have suffered enough damages, haven't they? What type of collateral damage are you willing to take before you all do the right thing?
Karen Hamblin on deck.
John Wilson. First thing I'd like to talk about is let's go ahead and get the paper lunch applications to all the Title I schools, because not everybody has access to a computer. I thought we talked about this. All right, I've had children in the district for the past 21 years consecutively, and I have 8 more to go. The last 2 years of these meetings have been enlightening, to say the least. I will continue to attend and fight for the children that aren't represented and don't benefit by the A. The district has done a terrible job backing all students and teachers. With that being said, professionals are in place to create a union for the teachers that represents all the teachers and classified employees. The new union will be set up, ran by teachers and classified employees for teacher and classified employees. You know that old saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I will be leaving this district better than when I found it.
Dr. Rebecca Lees on deck.
Dr. Asplin, school board members, Karen Hamblin, a teacher in the district for 10 years. Some studies show that students without computers or internet access at home are between 20 and 40 months behind in reading and math than students that have access. Many of our students live well below the poverty level and without a one-on-one device are not able to keep up with their assignments, which now most are online. When they can't keep up, they give up. I received a donation of 55 computers for the students' low-income families at Riverview, and I delivered those to Stug on March the 7th. I was later informed these computers would be distributed to 5 other agencies in Sarasota and not specifically to Riverview. The students have to request a computer, and when the request is received, then it's prepared, and sometimes it's 1 to 2 months before the students receive the computer, if they have one available. 2 weeks before school went out at Riverview, students were still waiting on a computer, one of those donated computers. Many districts like Escambia County give 9th graders a one-on-one device. Miami-Dade County offers students on free and reduced lunch a one-on-one device, while still others like Oswego County schools use their COVID-19 funds to give all students a one-on-one device. In June, all Riverview staff received new computers, and all the computer carts were refreshed with 2,400 new computers. We have an estimated 2,500 students at Riverview. Apparently, the old computers are going to storage units in case of another COVID outbreak. We have hotspots that are free and Microsoft partners with education, so getting the resources for these students shouldn't be an issue. Success is not a given, but opportunities should be. So I'm asking this board to give every student the same opportunity by giving them a one-on-one device. Thank you.
Angela Nguyen on deck.
Rebecca Lees. Woke is not a pedagogical term. And I just wanted to mention that because I heard that mentioned tonight, and I think that's a political term, not something pertaining to instruction and learning. But I want to speak now to the importance of professional teacher training. Too many folks I have found in my years out in the public think that Google now is a replacement for text or training, and that any person could teach anything. Regarding teacher qualifications, I'm troubled by what I'm reading in the news saying that our state may be going to allow people without degrees or teacher training to teach. The specific knowledge bases like health education, math, science, physics, history, geography, languages, art, music, physical education, and more are all important knowledge bases that are not necessarily totally transferable between each other. And then those knowledge bases must be learned and taught at the age-appropriate level, like kindergarten, elementary, middle school, etc. And this involves specific training and procedural learning. Could a physicist or a chemist from the private sector teach those subjects? Possibly. They certainly have a lot of the knowledge base, but it's the pedagogical knowledge interface that is needed, and that cannot be just assumed, and it cannot be learned on Google. When I read that the governor is urging military vets to teach, that really sent a red flag up for me, because the lack of general, specific, and pedagogical knowledge base is a very serious concern there, and I can't understand how or why he would highlight that group of people, which incidentally are predominantly men. Lastly, how can you justify hiring unqualified teachers to the taxpayers? I just hope this fine district is out in front of this problem, and expertise does matter.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, that concludes the general comments.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Have an enjoyable evening.